Hello, welcome to another episode of Bat Dan's Discussions. So, I just saw Ant-Man 3, and you know me probably more as a DC guy, so I thought, you know what? Let's bring on a resident Marvel guy to help me out. So please welcome Socks Bulletin.
Hey guys, how y'all doing out there in the wonderful world of the internets? Now that I'm on here, I can have my way of fun. I'm just kidding.
How are you today, Socks? Thanks for joining me.
I'm doing well, man. I've been doing very good. I've been just doing some rereading on some comics. I bought some new issues the other day and getting ready for the show with you. I'm glad you had me on. I feel honored and blessed, man. You know, most people don't ever want me on their channel, but I understand it. But you're taking a chance.
Hey, I need my help with the Marvel knowledge. You have more Marvel knowledge than I do, so no one else I could have on the show.
It works out because I know you're more DC and I'm more Marvel, but we can come to respect each other on that, and I'm fine with that. And I like to learn about other things that I don't know about, especially when it comes to DC comics. And I admit I don't know as much about DC stuff as I do about Marvel stuff.
And I don't know as much about Marvel as I do DC. So, hey, balances out perfectly.
Exactly.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. So anyway, we just both saw Ant-Man 3 and just really excited to talk about it. So, what do you think about the MCU?
I love the MCU. I know I can see its faults for certain things that they've done, all the way from back to Phase 1. A lot of people say that Phase 4 shit the bed or whatever. I don't think Phase 4 is horrible. I'm not saying it's as great as the first 3 phases. There's only been like 1 or 2 movies in Phase 4 that I kind of disliked. I didn't care too much for Eternals. I didn't care for Love and Thunder. And the only reason why I didn't like Love and Thunder was there's too many jokes. If you take out all the jokes out of that movie altogether, it's a good story. But they put in way too many jokes into that film. I actually did enjoy Riding the Rock. I know I had its issues too, but Love and Thunder was just overboard. For Eternals, I didn't like the fact that it felt very much woke because they turned the main character, which was Icarus, and made him a traitor, murderer, and I didn't like that sort of thing. Visually, it's a good movie. Story wise, I don't care for it. If I get to the point where I can see problems with the story, it really bothers me. But I love Spider-Man: No Way Home. That's my favorite. I love Shang-Chi. I like Black Widow. I love Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness. Werewolf by Night was by far the best film of Phase 4 besides No Way Home. And yes, I will consider Spider-Man No Way Home part of Phase 4 because it is part of the MCU. A lot of people say, oh, it's not part of the MCU. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I want to hear this story. It is. But
I agree. I feel like the Spider-Man films with Tom Holland, creatively speaking, I feel like Marvel, the MCU, Kevin Feige have a lot more involvement on that end. Sony mostly just gets the distribution. That's the way I kind of look at it. So I do give Marvel credit for the success of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, I mean, they're flawed. They're not perfect. I mean, I've been reading Spider-Man since the early 80s and been collecting it since the late 80s. And I can point out mistakes on that, of course, sure. But Tom Holland as Peter Parker and Spider-Man is spot on. But I don't have any reason that I would want to walk out on it, because I've seen films that I've watched that I'm like, oh God, get me out of this thing. But no, but as a whole, I can see faults with MCU. But right now, I'm not ready to say I'm done with the MCU because I'm not. I don't. I think people want to hate the MCU for reasons that don't exist. If you want to point out faults that are reasonable, I'll listen to you. But if you're gonna just sit there and say I hate this movie just to hate this movie because it's the end thing to do to hate something, then I don't want to listen to it. I just ignore you altogether.
Yeah, I agree. Constructive criticism, go at it. Hating something to hate something, yeah, nope, not No need for that. But let's go over the other bug character in Marvel,
Okay.
Ant-Man.
Yeah.
So this will be obviously this film's been out for over a week now, so this is definitely going to be a spoiler review. So if you had not seen Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, then turn back now unless you don't care about spoilers.
Exactly.
But kind of how I've structured my short-term Batman's thoughts is go over what we liked, what stood out, what we didn't like so much.
Okay.
So yeah, so like overall, like with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, what'd you like about this film? Like what really worked for you?
The story. The story was really good for me. I love the part, and I had noticed this early on in the film, and it's actually a very nice callback to Infinity Endgame, the last Avengers game, Avengers Endgame. If you remember carefully in the new Ant-Man movie, Scott doesn't want to be a hero anymore. He wants to be a father. He wants to be a writer. He wrote that book, and Cassie's explaining to him, we got to help these people in the Quantumania realm to save them from Kang and so on, and do the right thing. And he doesn't want to do all that. Now, if you go back to Avengers Endgame, Scott gives that same speech to Tony about wanting to save and bring everyone back. We had to go fight, through the quantum realm to get the stones from the timelines to bring them back to set everything right. It's the same speech, and it's a nice way of completing that circle. But that was just that's storytelling to me. When I see something that's a solid story and is performed and acted out on that story, it hits me because they're taking their time to show, hey, we can tell a story here. And you can sit there and say, well, Kang is not really an Ant-Man villain. Well, let's ignore that. Look at the story. Is the story solid? Can the story work? Can we execute this story? Can we make the story compelling to the fans that want to see this story in live action? I think they did a good job.
Yeah, and I never thought about that with the callback. That's a very good point you make. It shows how very similar that Scott Lang and Tony are. Is that they're
Yeah,
motivated by their daughters because
yeah,
really in Endgame, I do you really see how relieved Scott was to see Cassie back, and just in this movie, it just shows the motivation he has is his daughter. The important thing wasn't the quantum realm to him. The important
yeah,
thing was getting his daughter home, getting his daughter to safety. He only really wanted to help the quantum people for Cassie.
yeah. And
This
that's what.
shows.
That's, well, I'm sorry.
I just said it just shows Scott's motivation very well.
And basically, that's all you really need as long as the story is solid, man. I mean, there's been plenty of times where you can watch a movie and say, "Ugh, this story doesn't work," but this story works. It really does, and it's Kang. Jonathan Majors is Kang. My God, man, Jesus, he really delivered. I mean, he really delivered his performance. He's he's terrifying. And Kang has always been terrifying. And I know very little about that character. I've been learning more and more about him over the last couple of weeks. And I've been reading comics for over 30 years, but I've mostly stuck with the Spider-Man, X-Men stuff, and so on. I never really got too much into the Avengers or Fantastic Four. I've read some of their stuff over the years, but never really got too much into Kang. But I've been going back and rereading stuff and watching animated cartoons of Kang on the Avengers, stuff like that. But Kang, Jonathan Majors, my God, if that ain't a Thanos level threat, I don't know what is, man. He was terrifying, and that actor really pulled it off.
Yeah, I really liked Jonathan Majors in this movie because one is, he did a very good job of separating his character from the version we saw in Loki. Like this, the one we saw in Loki was this more goofy, menacing version,
Yeah.
whereas this Kang was like kind of this dark, scary person that
Oh, I think back then, no. Don't worry, guys. Back then, I'll be back in a minute. He's probably having some issues with his internet. Welcome to the Shots Show. I've done finally taken over this wonderful thing. uh, don't worry, all. He'll be back in a minute. Welcome back there, sir.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to just stop Cam to kind of join the format you were doing, but StreamYard interpreted this as kick me from the show. So, anyway, but yeah, to get back to my point on Jonathan Majors, is he did like a very good job of playing the different roles very well. Like even though it was the same actor, I really felt like Jonathan Majors from Loki and Jonathan Majors or Kang, I guess I should say Kang from Loki and Kang from Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania. I could really tell those were different characters, and it played very well into what Loki, where he was kind of saying that he's kind of the nicest version of all the different Kangs. Whereas, and it kind of showed is that this Kang in Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania was this very different version than we saw in Loki.
When you're an actor and you can broaden your acting skills the way that he did in both roles as that character from either Loki or Ant-Man, one being goofy, the other one being serious, and he can sell that performance on both sides. That tells me that this guy is a solid actor on all levels because not every actor can pull that off. And you got to have that ability to do that. So Puffy 3 comes out. What's his name? That's playing Creed again. And he is going to have himself a hell of a career. So kudos to him.
Yeah, really, really great job for Jonathan Majors. Is that one thing that I think they did set up very well for him was the fact that he is like this threat. It got me more excited to see more of Jonathan Majors going forward in the future of this franchise. Because one thing I was worried about was after Thanos died was, okay, what are they going to do to top this? Who's going to be the next overall big bad of the MCU? Who's going to do a good job competing with Thanos? And after seeing Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania, I really feel like Kang is that big bad. I feel like that is the next threat for not just the MCU, but really good job setting up the entire Marvel multiverse.
Yeah, somebody had pointed out about almost a year ago that I read online that Phase 4 had to start all over again because Endgame was the end of Phase 3 completely. It took 10 years to get to Thanos. That was a 10-year mission, so that was wrapped up. So when you had to start Phase 4, you had to build this thing up from the ground up all over again. And a lot of people are not understanding that. They say, "Well, that's why this movie sucks or this phase sucks because none of this is over here." Well, because they had to restart it and they had to relaunch it and they had to go through the streaming first and then go to the movies and so on. If you go back and look at Phase 1 films and look how much they costed the box office when the final run was over, like Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger, and so on. Those movies, even though they're good in story wise, they didn't make $900 million each or $800 million each. That didn't matter because the stories were good and they began the process of what's coming. So that's how I look at things. I look at things not so much as profit wise, even though let's be real, profit money is what makes the business work. I understand that. But I try to focus on that a little bit and story and if it's going to last the test of time. Iron Man proved that. Captain America, the first Avenger proved that. The Incredible Hulk proved that. Thor proved that. And the Avengers movie became $1 billion, the very first one. But you got to be able to realize your structure, where it's going to start. It can build upon it. And I can go on and on and on about why I thought Iron Man was the right way to do things, why Iron Man was it had a lot riding on it. There was a lot of pressure on that film, from a fan point of view. I'm not talking about from a person that worked on the inside point of view. That's a totally other thing altogether. But I'm starting to go off into a rant, so I apologize. But
No problem. Again, I understand if when you're passionate about something, it's so easy to go off. But you kind of bring up a good point. Is that again, Phase 4 kind of has to kind of build back towards that $1 billion Secret Wars, which I feel like this movie did set up very well. And one thing it was kind of interesting what happened with Kang in this movie. It was what I liked seeing is how they established Janet in the quantum realm and how she was kind of responsible for what happened in the quantum realm. Is that obviously we could tell when Jane was helping Kang out that he was going to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
But obviously Janet just saw a traveler. He got stranded and she wanted to help him. But it was just kind of really interesting is that it showed that Kang was able to kind of really make the best of a bad situation. Is that he was still trapped in the quantum realm. It was still his prison, yet he found a way to get out to make the best of the situation. He's like, okay, I can't conquer the other worlds in the universe, so I'm going to conquer this universe. And I felt like it just showed how adaptable Kang really is.
He is definitely a survivor. He was able to adapt to his surroundings. He didn't fall apart. He was injured. He was brought back by Janet, and he was able to blossom from that and grow from that, and grow out from that, and be able to take what he wanted to build upon it. So he can prove that he has the leadership and to be the conqueror that he always said that he is, which we all know he is. But he realized that what he was conquering was too small. He already had it. So now it's time to move forward and take over more, which that's greed. So greed is going to be his downfall. So if you realize that, then you know how to attack it, which is exactly what they did.
Yeah, exactly. And they kind of showed that he has had previous success, like mentioned that he's killed other Thors before, other different Avengers. And it showed, again, they just did a really good job of building up this Kang threat. And I like how they handled Janet kind of in this movie with that situation, how they kind of played her fears of the quantum realm is that she was afraid of it. She didn't want to go back to it, and she didn't want to tell her family what she did. And I totally get why. Is that, it's understandable is that she was manipulated, and then she had to kind of think of the greater good of the entire multiverse. So she had to leave him stranded. She did the right thing at that situation. Once she already helped Kang build his little ship thingy to get out of the quantum realm, she still had to. At that point, though, she did the right thing to kind of leave him trapped in there, even if it meant kind of damning the rest of the quantum realm. But she had no. It was either that or the rest of the multiverse. But she still took that responsibility to help the quantum realm, help the people survive as best they can. And I like that conflict that she had is that, Scott rescued her from the quantum realm. And she had to kind of, live with that guilt that she caused this mess and now she essentially screwed over the people of the quantum realm. And they did a really good job of showing that inner conflict, I thought.
There's definitely a redemption arc for her in this film, because when she ends up going back there, even though she didn't want to be back there, she realized that Scott, Cassie, and her, Hank had to do something. So there's a redemption arc for her there. And even on top of all that, that place is there to kill you. If you see all those things that are there, and that's not just Kang, all those creatures, they ain't there to be cuddled and played with. They're there to look at you like you're a Happy Meal. And they're like, oh, hello. And it's like, no, hello, go away.
Exactly. It just shows like how dangerous the quantum realm is, but still the residents there, despite that, they found a way to make it their home and they can adapt to the situation. And and I thought that was good. But one thing I really that stood out for me the most in this movie is the father-son dynamic of Scott and Cassie. Is that Scott was gone for 5 years, trapped, and I guess he was technically trapped in like the first level of the quantum realm or whatever. But the point is, he missed a lot of Cassie's life, and he's trying his best to make up for it as best he can. She's getting into trouble, modeling herself, trying to model herself after him, and he feels, and he's trying to do the best for her. Is that even in the quantum realm, nothing else matters to him other than getting Cassie out, getting Cassie home. Cassie, they did a really good job of showing them that father-daughter relationship in this film, and that, to me, that was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
They definitely wanted to show a close family. And if you look at it the way I look at it, it is definitely the very first family of the MCU fighting an impossible threat. Even before the Fantastic Four actually show up, it's this family all together. All of them are together fighting this impossible threat as a family. And I realized that when I was watching it, I was like, wow, that's like the Fantastic Four, but it ain't the FF. It's this family. They're fighting this impossible threat. They know they gotta try, and like Scott said, I don't care if I don't win, as long as we both lose.
Exactly. He was willing to sacrifice himself, leave himself stranded in the quantum realm in order not just to save Cassie, but really to save the rest of the multiverse.
Yeah, exactly. The movie is not woke. I've seen woke films. This movie is not woke. It's definitely about a family that is doing what they have to do to protect each other and survive and do what's right together. And I respect it and I love that. Because I've seen films that are woke, that are totally against the family dynamic, against the father dynamic. They just want to destroy it. This ain't nowhere near that. It is definitely an anti woke film. But people are going to sit there and say, well, it didn't make that much money. Okay, none of the Ant-Man movies made $1 billion. None of the Ant-Man movies made over $700 million. I think the second one made close to 700, and the first one made around 5 worldwide. I don't look at it like you people do. And we gotta get past this weird mentality. Well, if a movie doesn't make $1 billion, it's garbage. That's not true. That's not true at all.
Yeah, that was always such a weird benchmark with me. Is that if the film doesn't make $1 billion, is that it's a bad film? And it's just like, no, that's. I mean, again, there's so many different factors that come into this, but again, it's the whole thing about the MCU is that the MCU just makes a lot of money, and every film in that contributes to the overall profit of the MCU. So, and again, it's setting up the film that's going to make that $1 billion.
Yeah.
So,
Secret Wars is going to be a huge film. Now, I know Kang Dynasty is going to be a big movie, and I'm not saying it's not. I believe so. I'm going to see that as well. But it's Secret Wars that's coming, and it's, oh my God. Oh, that movie's going to be on a whole other level.
yeah, exactly. I'm excited for Secret Wars, and I'm excited with all the setup that's in this movie.
Yeah.
But there are some things that I found kind of interesting in this film, and maybe I'm just overthinking it too much. But when Cassie's in jail, there's no sign of her mom or stepdad, who was a cop even,
Yeah.
and she's in jail, and they're like nowhere to be found. And I found that kind of weird that they just kind of, other than like one brief mention that they weren't there in that beginning of the movie. They're just kind of forgotten about mostly.
I saw that too. I was wondering about that myself. I was wondering where's Lewis? Because Lewis was hilarious in the first 2 films. I just, man, where's Lewis? So there's definitely you lose those 3 characters plus Lewis's other 2 partners, and you gain a little bit more with certain other characters. And I know they gotta balance this out with story. They got only so much time to tell a certain story. I would have liked to see Lewis and his other 2 partners in the film, and her mother, her real mother, and her stepfather. But that's the sacrifice, unfortunately, for the story that they were telling.
Yeah, I get that. Just, I don't know. Sometimes it wouldn't hurt to give a line of dialogue to explain where they are in the beginning, because I get that you can't have you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen. I totally get that. And in the movie, they're in the quantum realm most of the time. I mean, they weren't going to bring every single character from the previous two movies in this one.
It had, like I said, it definitely had its flaw issues with those missing characters. I totally agree. The only other real flaw issue I saw in this film that I can think of at this moment is that MODOK has always been a very odd character. Even I had to say that. The scene where MODOK is fighting Cassie and she's basically saying, "Please don't be." It's I won't go as far as say it's cringe dialogue or anything, but it's like a little off. Seeing the return of Darian Cross as he went from Yellow Jacket to MODOK. But what could you do with MODOK? He's like I said, he's always been a very odd looking character. So it wasn't enough for me to walk out on the movie, but at the same time, it was like he was a side character, side villain. But I guess he got his redemption arc too when he attacked Kang.
I could have done this film without MODOK in it because I just felt like, one, he just looked really weird, and like I feel like one thing I'm not a big fan of the MCU is when they throw in jokes at certain places, and I felt like with him, the humor just got a little overboard at certain points. Like just like spending, it felt like hours talking about his tiny legs, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I don't know. It just looked. He didn't really, in my opinion, he didn't really contribute anything to the movie. I feel like he was just kind of filler for this movie, and I have to be honest, I felt his redemption arc kind of came out of nowhere. It was just like Cassie's just like, "Don't be a dick. I'm going to attack Kang now," and I don't know. He didn't really contribute to anything. He just kind of tried to attack Kang. Kang's like, "Nope, you're dead." Yeah. That's all. I could have done this movie without MODOK because again, these stupid jokes, the weird look. It just, I guess from the trailer, I thought the movie would be a lot more serious than it was, and I don't know. I felt like he just kind of put a lot of unnecessary comedy in this film.
I can understand it. I'm not against what you're saying. It makes perfect good sense to me. Like I said, even I let that mode. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to deal with this now. But again, it wasn't to the point where I wanted to walk out on the movie. But yeah, I could have watched this whole film without MODOK. But I guess they wanted to throw a dog a bone on this situation.
Just an Easter egg to connect to the previous movies a little more. I mean, that's basically what that was.
Yeah.
And I just, explains, what happened to Darren after the first movie. So this kind of, it answers that question a little bit.
Yeah, I loved him as Yellow Jacket, but him as, I don't even really know who MODOK really is in the comics. I know the character, obviously, because I read Marvel for so long, but I don't know if it's another person altogether or another alien altogether. Not that I'm going to tell you the truth, I really don't care for the character MODOK. I really don't care. I looked at the characters like, oh, God, what is this?
Yeah, and just, again, I didn't know him from the comics. I just know from the movie, he just wasn't that. I could have done without MODOK. That's basically my long and short of it. Is they could have just not put him in the film, and I don't think anything would have really been lost from it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I'm the same way. But I know I'm kind of MCU biased or Marvel biased, if you will, and that's just my flaw. But
again, we all have our preferences, and again, that's why I had to bring you on because you're my Marvel guy. You can help kind of fill in some of the gaps that I don't know.
Happy to do it.
But one thing I would have liked to see put that more of time in is Hope's storyline. I've said this when I talk about the trailer, is that the movie is called Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but it's Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like Hope's character is in the title of the film, and I felt like she was mostly just there. I felt like they could have taken some. I would like to see her have her own little story arc in this movie. I mean, I'm not saying she didn't do anything in this movie, but like it felt like she was just mostly. She didn't really have her own. She felt like a supporting character basically, and I felt like if she's in the title, she should have felt like a main character.
It definitely felt more like Ant-Man and his daughter's story more than Ant-Man and his wife's story.
Yeah, and and I liked Hope as a character. I liked her in the first movie. I liked her in the second movie, and I just felt like in the third movie they could have done a lot more with her than they did. Now she definitely had some significant moments, like she helped Scott get that device thingy that Kang. I don't even know what was that called. You know, when we got trapped in that probability storm. What was that again?
That multi-dimensional traveler device. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, she helped Scott get that, and she saved Scott at the end. So she did some stuff, but like I don't know. I would have liked to kind of see her have her own struggle, her own story arc. That, or don't put her name in the title of the movie. Just say Ant-Man Quantumania if you're not going to do a lot with her.
It was interesting hearing Janet and the Bill Murray, and talk about their interesting exploits. Because Janet said, "I was away for 30 years. I have needs." And Janet and Hope is Hope is like, "Oh God, stop talking." And you can see Hank is like, "What?" And then Hank talks about another woman, and they're going on. They're saying certain things. You know what they're implying. They don't have to come out and say sex, but you get what they're implying. And I just thought that was hilarious, man, hearing them talk like that.
Yeah, and it makes. I mean, and I thought they did it very well. They didn't overly extend that conversation, but it's a basic human need, and they're apart for 40 years or 30 years. So, of course, they had to at some point.
Right.
So, I was fine with that. I think they kind of touched that on that wall. It didn't overstay its welcome. It gave you the idea, and I thought, and I don't know, I like Bill Murray's. I guess you could call it like an extended cameo in the movie. Yeah. I thought he did a very good job with the character.
See, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to storytelling. You know what they're talking about, and even though they don't say the exact word, they're implying it, and they don't have to stretch it out for like another 20 minutes or whatever. And it hits because okay, I know what they're talking about, and then they go on to the next subject of the rest of the film. So I can understand that. Unlike say something like Eternals, where we'll show a set scene in the movie, like, wait, what?
Yeah, that was definitely Ant-Man 3 did it better. I'll put it like that. Yeah. But one thing was kind of weird to me was it felt like Cassie was just good with using the Ant-Man tech or the Hank's Pym technology, whatever you call it, without really having any proper training. Just from the beginning, it just feels like she has a suit and and maybe this is more of a hindsight thing, but I kind of wish what they did in Ant-Man and the Wasp, the second of the Ant-Man movies, was maybe show Janet's character not get blipped, and because of what Thanos did, she couldn't reach out to Scott, and then she could have trained Cassie in those 5 years. Because it felt like we should have seen more. Like, when did Cassie do all this training to the point that she's as good as it as she was? It just felt like, I don't know, like, what do you think about that?
The only answer I have to that is when Hank was talking about it, because it seemed like Hank was helping her. And when it comes to intelligence, some people can adapt to certain things, and they're, naturally can figure certain things out on their own. I'm not saying people are stupid or smart or whatever. It's just sometimes a person could be a savant. I mean, my dad, when he was alive, had a friend, and he was able to do things with cars and buildings, and never went to school for it, but he just had a natural way of doing things. Even though he didn't have a degree in certain things, but he could still do it, and it would work perfectly. So there are people out there in this world that could do things that don't have a degree or go to school for whatever reason to do it, and yet they can still do it. They have that mindset. It just happens that way. You're just wired to do certain things. So that's the only way I can rationalize that. Maybe she had that mind where she could adapt to it and make it and build it with the help of Scott. With Hank, because Hank did teach her a few things, and she heard what he had to say and just build upon it.
And that's a fair point. And some people are just naturally good at stuff, and they did show her struggle some, so that was good. But it really did a great job of kind of showing that family dynamic of like the five more. Is that because Cassie never really had a relationship too much with like any of the pimps.
Yeah.
So it did kind of at least show that relationship with the three of them a little more. I don't know. I would have, and again, I think it might have worked a little bit better if maybe Hank or someone was not blipped during the 5 years to kind of show. I mean, again, hindsight 2020, they can't like go back in time to the other directors of the other Marvel movies and be like, okay, you got to make this and this happen. But
yeah, I mean, but look at Shuri from Black Panther, how highly intelligent she is. I'm not talking about the second film, which I actually liked. I'm talking about the original. I remember people online saying, "Wow, look how she can create all this technology because she's so highly intelligent. She's smarter than Tony Stark." No, that's not exactly true. What it is there's different levels of intelligence. One person might be smart to build this thing, but somebody else might be smart enough to build this thing. So you gotta look at it that way. Okay, you can't just sit there and say, "Well, this person's smarter than everybody in the whole world of the MCU." That's not true. That is not true. You got to look at what they're doing and how they're doing it and where are they getting their resources from. People can sit there and say, well, Tony Stark built a fucking iron suit out of scraps in a cave. That was highly intelligent. He had the intelligence to do that. Could Shuri have done the same thing? Could Cassie do the same thing in a cave with nothing but scraps? We don't know. We know what they built on their own in their own time.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point too. People have different levels of intelligence, so. And again, I guess it's just kind of personal preference here. I mean, it would have kind of just showed the bond maybe a little bit more if, like, Cassie had that time to explore. Because, and again, this is kind of where I go back to the whole she didn't have anyone. Yeah. So this is where again I wonder was her mom and stepdad included? Were they blipped away? Were they taking care of her? Like, I don't know. That's a question I would have liked answered.
Unanswered question, and that is a problem with the MCU. That is definitely a fault with the MCU because there's a lot of things that have been going on since the end of Phase 3, early Phase 4, that has happened that we don't have answers to, and that is a fault. And I will point that out. I mean, I can go on about that as well. That you're right. She did not have, especially if she was. Okay, let's see. The second film came out when she had to be like her early teens. I'm thinking maybe 14, somewhere around there, 15 maybe. And you point out a good question. How the hell did she do all that by herself? She didn't have Hank. She didn't have Scott. She didn't have her Janet. And we don't even know if her real mother was there. And I highly doubt that her stepdad was an engineer like Scott is, but he's a cop. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because cops had to have their skills too. So it comes down on her. Okay, fine. It comes down on her to build what she needs to build. Where did she get the resources from? Where did she get the funding from? Where did she get the time? How did she do it? Where did she do it? All good questions.
Yeah, and so again, that would have just kind of helped a little bit more. But also another thing that the MCU does, and we're going to kind of go, and this is going to, again, relate to Ant-Man 3, is that I feel like the MCU gets a little too recast happy sometimes. Yeah. Is that they're so quick to recast a character. And I'll tell you my stance on recast is that I understand they have to do it sometimes, but every time they do it, I hate it because it really just messes with the continuity for me. Is that one day you're this person and you just magically morph into this person. It was jarring with Edward Norton and Mark Ruffalo. It was jarring with the Iron Man with Rhodes, and just I felt like this Ant-Man 3 with Cassie. Now, again, I like Catherine Newton as an actress. I first saw her in Supernatural, where she played a character named Claire, so I'm surprised I haven't called her Claire yet. But anyway, point is, Catherine Newton did a good job, but I just feel like they could have done a little bit better with planning ahead to kind of avoid that recast. Whether it would have been putting Catherine Newton in Endgame or just keeping the actress from Endgame in Ant-Man 3. Because Catherine Newton's was kind of mostly a TV actress. So she would have been available she would have done Endgame if you basically told her that she was probably going to be in Ant-Man 3. So I don't know. I felt like they could have avoided that recast there.
Yes, I would agree with that. Unfortunately, Hollywood is a very fickle place, to say the least, is because sometimes these actors get ahead of themselves. They cause problems behind the stage, behind the scenes that we are not aware of until later on when we hear about the rest of this crap. I mean, I loved the Incredible Hulk movie with Ed Norton. I thought that was a great movie. But apparently, Edward Norton is a very hard actor to work with, and he caused issues with Feige and the rest of the MCU and Disney. Same thing goes with Terrence Howard. I thought he was great as Rhodey, but he felt that he deserved top billing and more money than even Robert Downey Jr. for Iron Man 2, which I thought, okay, I don't think that's exactly accurate for you, sir. You deserve a pay bump, I agree, but you're not a better actor because Downey Jr.'s been around acting since the 80s, but okay. But again, you got to look at it. How does this person, as an actor, affect the scenes behind the film? Are they going to be able to work with these people? Or are they going to be like, hey, we got to replace this guy because he's got too much of an ego? And it can cause problems for fans like us watching this. So like, hey, who is this guy? Why is he here? So I understand what you're saying. And at the end of the day, it's all about money. It's who's going to make money and who's going to cause the least problems.
Yeah, I guess. Again, I don't know. Again, I don't know the whole circumstances of, at least with the two actresses for Cassie. Although I do have to ask, you say Edward Norton caused problems for Disney, but wasn't that before Disney bought Marvel technically?
Well, when the first Phase 1 films were made, like Incredible Hulk and so on, they were made by Marvel and they were distributed by Paramount.
Except Hulk.
Yeah, except for Hulk, because that's Universal. You're right, correct. He had wanted to add certain things to the script. I don't know everything he wanted to add, but he wanted certain things put into that script to make it really different. I think they went along with most of it, but not all of it. And he caused a lot of issues. I don't know all the issues, but he caused a lot of issues behind the scenes. And that's why he replaced it with Mark Ruffalo. I don't. It's hard to sit here and say that I think they did the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do because I love that movie so much. But end of the day, if you're making a movie and you have to deal with an actor that's nothing but problematic every day, do you really want to work with this guy later on? You got to ask these questions, man. Is this guy going to be a problem that you got to deal with later on down the line in other films? Or do you want to get rid of this guy, bring in somebody else, and it's fun to work with this other person, but it does change what the character looks like in their role as that character. So these are all things you got to deal with as a studio.
It's just funny because they didn't want to recast Chadwick Boseman. They do all this recasting, but then Chadwick Boseman, they're like, nope, we can't recast him.
That was tough. Then because when I read about that and I knew what they were going to do, that was a hard decision to do because I understood what they were doing. I'm not saying I agree with it or disagree with it. I know they were trying to pay the respect to him. He was a solid actor, a great man, but that could work in two different ways. It could work or it could bomb. And I told everybody I knew that movie has got a lot riding on it. If that story is not solid, it can fall apart. It's going to kill that sequel bad because you're putting so much weight on that sequel. You got to tell a compelling story. It's got to be heartbreaking. You got to make sure right off the bat that story is going to make you feel it. If you don't feel it, it ain't going to work. They made me feel it. They really did. And they set it up at the end of the film where we find out that T'Challa did have a son, and his name is T'Challa. That's gonna be the future Black Panther right there. I know I've heard people say, "Well, Shuri shouldn't have been the Black Panther. They should have recast it." Again, I get that and I understand it, but say, I'm a Marvel guy. Shuri was Black Panther in the comics, but people normies don't know this. There are people out
Well, I
there
think
that.
most.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that, like, well, I think most people knew that she was going to be Black Panther. I think what they wanted is they felt like T'Challa's story wasn't over, and he should have had more movies before Shuri became Black Panther. I think that's kind of more what I hear.
I can understand that. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm sensitive to that, and that's exactly what the third film is going to be because it's going to lead to that. I mean, I know people that are what they consider to be a comic book purist. They want every film to be exactly how it is in the comic books. I'm like, that's not exactly as easy as you think it is because, first of all, I can go into a lot of details about that. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's not as exactly easy as you think it is. But what do I know? I'm just a fan.
Oh, that's the thing. Fans, you can't appease all fans. And again, like, we have different opinions, which is why I love these discussions. And I want to see if you have the same opinion on this topic with Ant-Man 3. So this is a general issue I have with a lot of MCU movies and not just MCU, I should say a lot of movies in general, is the third act. I feel like third acts are always the weakest out of any movies. And I felt like with Ant-Man 3, I don't know, for me, the third act didn't quite do it for me.
Was it because of the whole, and we have to go back to this thing, the whole MODOK so-called redemption arc where he attached Kang at the last second, which made no freaking sense.
Yeah, that was one thing that didn't make sense to me. But the other thing is they built this version of Kang. I know we're going to see other Kangs, but this version of Kang, they built up as this guy who's killed Avengers, and he's defeated by ants.
Yeah. Well, if you go back to the movie, there's a scene where Hank says those ants are highly intelligent. They're highly advanced. They were able to create their own thing, and that's explained. That's fully explained about those ants, how they were able to adapt and be advanced and highly intelligent and be able to be their own ant armada, as I call it. So I had no problem with that because he explained that when he was messing around with his talking about the earpiece. He was hearing that weird sound, like trying to figure out what that was. And then later on, he explained how they became so advanced. So I had no issue with that. I actually like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I know they explained it. It felt too. I don't know. It still just feels weird to me. Even intelligent ants, it just feels weird to me that essentially intelligent ants could beat the Avengers, essentially. So I don't know. It's like it's the problem when you build up a villain to be too powerful. Then you have to have like a really good method of defeating them, and I don't know. And again, my opinion is that it just didn't quite work for me there.
Well, Stan Lee once said a long time ago in an interview, and I always remember this, that to make a great hero, you gotta have great villains. Your villains had to be so great that the hero is gonna have a hard time taking down that villain. He was right, and I've always gone by that. So Kang is a great villain. So you needed some great heroes to stop this guy. And if you look at the last fight scene between Scott and Kang is beating the hell out of Scott bad. I mean, he's really beating him horribly. I mean, he kicked Scott's ass all over that fucking room. It was just unreal. But at the end of the day, the heroes were able to win, and there was a part where Hope came in to help him. Like, oh no, I'm back. I'm gonna help you out. And there you go. You said you wish there was more Hope. Hope had to come in, and she did help. And now people are gonna say, "Well, there's the wokeness right there." No, it's not woke. The love of his life came back. The love of her life came back to get him, and that's what a family does.
And yeah, I even said like that was like one of the only things she did is that she did come back and save him.
Yeah.
But or maybe I didn't get to that. Maybe I don't remember if I got to that or not. But the point is, that was like one of the two things she did. Is she saved Scott twice, but and I did like that. But one thing I do have to ask though is that they defeat this Kang by shrinking him in the quantum realm. So is he trapped? Is there like a quantum realm within the quantum realm?
That I don't know. That's a very good question. I'll have to look into that. I'm so old school. I knew what the quantum realm was called back in the 80s before they actually called it this. In Marvel Comics, it was actually called the Microverse. And all those characters you saw in the Microverse was called the Micronauts. Okay. But obviously, Marvel can't use the rights to that anymore because they lost the rights to it a long time ago. So they called it the Quantum Mania, the Quantum Realm. But that's what it was originally called. And it was called the Microverse and the Micronauts. That's where Ant-Man goes, and that's where certain other characters came from, like Psychonaut, certain other villains. But I would have to look into that. I don't know. Even if there isn't, if you remember the post-credit scene, the Council of Kangs, that's a real thing in the comics. There were a Council of Kangs. There's thousands of these Kangs. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's one thing I really loved is that, I mean, the mid-credit scenes is that just seeing all these different Kangs there, and just in that one thing we're going to wonder which Kang is going to be the overall main bad guy of all this, because we don't. It's kind of weird because we know who the actor is going to be for the main bad guy, but we don't really know the exact character who's going to be the main bad guy. We know it's a Kang, but which Kang is going to end up being the main one?
I've learned a while ago when it comes to the MCU, some characters just don't die. I mean, we assume right now that the Kang version that Scott was fighting was killed or went to another part of the quantum realm, even further down below the rabbit hole, so to speak. But we don't know that for sure. I mean, so we won't find that out till like maybe later on in certain other films. I mean, they could either build upon that, bring him back, or they could build upon another version of Kang altogether. So, which
I feel like they're going to build another Kang. Like I feel like we could see that Kang return, but I feel like if they're going to show this Council of Kangs and the fact that he was the one who was banished, I'm guessing that there's a more powerful Kang out there.
Yes, and that's what I'm starting to think too. I think they're just going to move forward. I don't think they're going to go back because, well, why would you need to when you could actually look upon all these other Kangs, and plus those other three Kangs that we saw in post-credit scene before they revealed the Council Kangs. You saw Immortus. You saw I think there's another character called you saw Ramatut, and you saw Scarlet. I think his name is Scarlet Centurion. I had to double check on that last one. And those are all different versions of Kang in the comics. So those are accurate.
Cool. Yeah. Again, this is why I bring you on, because it's like you know a lot more about this stuff than I do.
Yeah, years of reading. If I don't know it right away when it comes tomorrow, I go look it up real quick. I wish I had the passion to do that more with DC, but I don't know. I just
different interests.
Yeah, I just connect more with Marvel. I always did, And I know I'm always in the background waving that MCU flag and a Marvel flag, and amongst a bunch of DC fans, and just letting you know I'm still here.
Yeah, well, again, this is why this show will be a great reminder that you're still here to all of Still Nation out there.
I appreciate it, though. But I will say No, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, before we get to the post-credit scene, not the mid-credit scene, I do want to say one thing that I forgot to talk about with the Scott-Cassie relationship. I liked how the probability storm showed that no matter what, Scott will work to get Cassie safe. I like that it showed that there is no version of Scott out there there's no probability of that happening. So that's why they were able to work together, was because the probability of Scott not helping Cassie was 0. So I wanted to address that before I forgot.
Definitely. Because it shows you where the heart of that character is and what's important to him. And she is the most important thing to him. And that comes across very easy and very well done. So I totally agree with that.
So now let's get to the post-credit scene, like the second one with Loki. What'd you think of that?
That caught me by surprise. When I saw that, I should have expected it because if you remember in the season 1, we're already seeing that Kang set up for the end of season 1. It didn't dawn on me right away until I saw the second post credit scene that this is going to lead into Loki season 2. But it also tells me that they're gonna bring in another Kang for that, and that's gonna be set. You can tell by the way they're dressed and the audience. It's set way too far in the past. But again, the MCU is connected, and that's how I always wanted it to be. I like my universe to be connected. That's another reason why I love the MCU so much is everything is connected. And
Yeah, and I was going to say, no matter what people think about Marvel, one thing that they do very well is that they have a plan, they stick with it, they appease their fan base, and they connect the universe really well. So I give them a lot of credit for that. I give Kevin Feige. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Kevin Feige is probably one of the best movie producers out there.
He's definitely the most famous, and he found a way to do. He did something that no other producer's been able to do since, before him or after him, and he took a gamble, and it worked. It's not perfect by any means necessary. It has its issues. I will acknowledge that. But this guy has brought in millions and even billions into Disney. He is the golden goose, okay? You don't sacrifice the golden goose. You look at that golden goose and you give him what you need to give him to make this thing work. Every studio should want a Kevin Feige type producer to help bring them money. And that's what we live in a capitalistic society, and that's how it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, not everybody has that vision. Not everybody knows what they're doing, but he does, and I gotta give him his credit for it. I gotta give him his respect for it. The guy sees things a certain way, and if a director comes along and doesn't want to go along with that vision, the director's gonna be shown the door. Hey, you can put your input into something, but at the end of the day, it's Kevin Feige's vision.
Yeah, and I give him so much credit for that. I mean, that he has a vision and he sticks with it. So, again, whatever issues anyone has with Marvel, you cannot argue that Kevin Feige does know what he's doing in general. And just to touch on my thoughts on the post-credit scene, I liked it. It made me more hyped for Loki season 2. I hope we see in Loki season 2 how he got to that particular place exactly. But I'm excited. I think there's a lot of great stuff coming up with Marvel. I'll be honest, this film was a little more set up for me, but overall, I thought you kind of made me appreciate the film a little bit more. So what rating do you give this film? You can go on out of a 10-point scale.
Honestly, I give Ant-Man 3 a 9.
Oh, a lot more generous than me. I'm going to give it at this point, and this was still higher than I was originally going to give it, but I will give it 7.65926 out of 4.
I think the reason why I say 9 out of 10 is like the whole MODOK situation. I miss Lewis. I miss seeing her stepfather and her mother. I miss the other guys. And I understood they had probably a sacrifice for time and story. I get it. And like you said, I would have loved to see a little bit more when it came to Hope's story. And it's more focused definitely on Scott and Cassie. I can't hate this film. I've seen films that I just get me away from it. I can't hate this film. I actually really enjoyed this movie a lot, and so I would definitely go for a 9.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of stuff I liked in this film too. Is that again, they did a really good job of exploring that dynamic between Scott and Cassie. I think that's the strongest part of this movie. And, even though there were certain things that didn't work for me, I'm still excited to see where Marvel goes going forward. I think there's a lot of great stuff we have to look forward to with the MCU. And I can't wait for Secret Wars. I hope to see more multiverse stuff. I think it's going to be really exciting.
That's how I look at it. I'm always willing to give MCU shows or movies a chance. Maybe I'm a little biased here, and I can admit to that. I would probably give them more of a chance because that's where my heart is, and I even do with DC stuff. Nothing against DC stuff. I do like the Snyderverse. I do respect it. I question certain things on it, but I do question it. There's certain things that came out along with it. I didn't care to see. I didn't watch Aquaman. I didn't watch Shazam. I didn't want to see Peacemaker. I didn't want to watch the Suicide Squad. I saw the other Suicide Squad. I walked out on it, man. I really did. That chopped up David Ayer cut version. I walked out on it because I did not like that movie. I want to see the David Ayer cut more than anything. I really do. But the other one, I walked out on it because I didn't. I saw problems with that film that bothered me, and to the point where Joker didn't even need to be in that movie. He was a plot device. You could have did a whole film with him just being in flashbacks and to the very end where he gets Hardy out of prison. That's how I saw things. And I know I'm going on a rant, and I'm not trying to be anti-Snyder. I'm not trying to say I hate DC. I don't hate DC. I don't think that they have the vision that Feige does, and they need that. And I'm sorry, not Kevin. James Gunn is not that guy.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that goes on the DC end, but again, one thing that Marvel has done is stick with their vision, and there's a lot. I think we have a lot of great stuff to look forward to, and maybe again, hopefully with DC with certain other stuff, with certain Elseworld stuff, we'll see about that. But tell me, Sask, do you have anything coming up on your channel?
I've been meaning to record an episode. I wanted to do it a couple of days ago, but I haven't had a chance. I've been busy doing other things. I've been meaning to record an episode on something because I'm not as consistent on YouTube or StreamYard like you are or some of the other guys are, right? Which is a fault of my own, But I'm going to try to get a new video out by hopefully tomorrow. Because I got to push myself to do it. And sometimes I forget or sometimes I get caught up in other things. So, how about yourself?
Well, I have my Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey review up, so if you haven't seen that, check it out. And I will see Cocaine Bear next Tuesday, and I'm going to try to get a review on that up. So lots of great stuff. And before we end the show, I want to do a quick advertisement. So Sox and I are both going to be in a comic book series called Dreamwalker. I'm just going to blow myself up real quick to show off the comics. So great artwork by Noel Flores and great story by Mikey Sutton.
That has changed my life in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, for what Mikey said about your character, so talk about your characters for people who don't know.
I'm not going to go into too many spoilers about it because it still blows my mind that I'm a part of something like this. It really does, because I've never been a part of anything as epic as this. And when he told me that my character is the most moral, profound villain of the group that I don't kill, and the bad guys are actually kind of like looking at me like, oh God, he's a creepy one. I told everybody when I first heard about this character, I fully embraced it. I really did. Be able to be a part of something like that. And I fully embraced this villain. And the respect I have for Mikey is unparalleled for him to do that for me. And I'm going to be in issue 3 and going forward, seeing that. I'm going to cry, dude. I'm going to literally cry tears of joy. I was happy seeing my name in the back of issue 1, so thank you section. If you look at that last page of issue 1 in the thank you section, my name is in there. And I know you've seen it back then. I know you've seen when he put my name in there, I lost it. Thanking me for all the things I've done for him. Because I truly believe that people deserve the credit for the work they put in. If you put something out there, it's a positive thing, give that person the credit and the respect. Show the world, hey, this person made this, give him his respect for it. And that's what I've always done. And I hate when people take something from somebody else and they don't give them the credit or respect. It really pisses me off more than anything. And I've been doing that for Mikey since 2019. And I never asked Mikey for anything. And Mikey will tell you, Sock has never asked me for nothing. The only time I ever asked Mikey for anything is if I could have permission from him. to do that, to post that on Facebook and Twitter saying this is a Mikeyverse scoop and go on from there. He said, yeah, go ahead. And I've always gave him his credit for every day. And I've always done that for him. And I would do that for anybody. But Mikey is the only scooper besides Sil now that I'll actually listen to. I won't listen to any other scoopers because I don't trust them. I listen to Mikey more than anything, and then I'll listen to Sil. That's it. But going on to the character, be a part of that, know that I'm going to live forever. We're all going to live forever in print. We're all going to live forever in print. My God, man. We are going to be iconic. And going forward with that later on, to me, you can't get bigger than that. Okay? And I'll be able to look back years from now and see that, I'm in this. That he respected me so much to say, I'm going to put sock in this. That blows my mind, man. It's got to blow yours because you're a part of it. We are in this thing together. We're all in this thing together. And we wouldn't exist if it weren't for this guy. And he gives me credit for coming up with the term the Mikeyverse. And I created the term. I coined that. When everyone kept saying, what does he keep saying this Mikeyverse thing? I'm the one that came up with that. I wanted, because he was bringing us all together. So I said, we got to have a name for this. So I created this term, and it just blew up. And the fact that he acknowledges that. And every time someone says Mikeyverse, I get a smile on my face. Because I know I contributed to it. And I'm glad I did. And be a part of this thing. And all of us. To me, I'm getting choked up thinking about it now. And issue 3 is in April. And I can't wait to read it.
Got me tearing up a little bit there. Yeah, just the fact that Mikey brought us all together just means a lot. And that's why I like to always advertise Dreamwalker on this channel. So again, it's the link to buy the comics. Second Skins Comics is in the chat and the description. So check it out. It's really good story. It's a really good story, really good artwork. And I'm not just saying that because we're both going to be in this thing. It's really good. You check it out. Check out Dreamwalker. Buy Dreamwalker. Anything else you want to add, Sucks?
If people don't get on board to buy these issues of Dreamwalker while they can, before next year hits, or in the next year, early 2025 hits, what we know is coming, they're going to be missing out because these issues are going to be collector items. They already are, in my opinion. But when this show hits, these people are going to flip out. And they're going to be scrounging to get this stuff. The only way you're going to be able to get it then is if they go to eBay and pay outrageous prices for sure. But we have it. And we've been telling people for months on end, buy this, get it while you can, at a reasonable price while you can. Because a year from now, you're not going to get it at a reasonable price. And you're going to be crying and say, I should have bought it at a reasonable price. Well, too late and so sad because there's only going to be so many copies. But one good thing is that Mikey is doing a trade paperback on it later on. He's already talked about it, of all 6 issues. So if you can't get the issues, get the trade. Whatever you can do, people, support Dreamwalker. Support Mikey. Support Noel. Enjoy the story. It's really worth it. It's really something to embrace. Embrace the Mikeyverse. Show your love. Show your respect. Mikey ain't going to take advantage of you. Mikey's not going to treat you guys like garbage. He's actually doing something good. And he's putting his money where his mouth is. He's actually showing you what's coming. And this is just the beginning. This is the very beginning. It's going to get crazy from here. It's going to get crazy.
More coming that we can't say.
Yeah.
So just lastly, check out Dreamwalker and comment in the comment section. Let me know. Do you agree with Socks more? Do you agree with me more on Ant-Man 3? Let us know. And if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode. And I have Socks' channel. Your channel is going in the description too. So get more content out. Bro, it's all a process. And lastly, have a bat-tastic day.
ta-ta for now.